flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Gamera, would you please take the roll?
Commissioner Hale?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Monette?
Here.
Vice Chair Pont?
Here.
And Chair Hardy?
Here. Ms. Gamera, I understand you have an announcement to make?
Correct. As the elevator is currently out of order, for ADA accessibility, we have a TV downstairs as well as a phone where people can watch the meeting, the meeting live, as well as call in for any public comment.
I guess this would be in the documentary category?
I think it's more a reality show.
Yeah, that's for sure. So that brings us to the public forum. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the commission on matters that are not on our agenda, and because they're not on the agenda, if you come to speak, we will not be able to offer any substantive response, but we'll take note. Is there anyone who would like to take advantage of the public forum? Very good. Seeing none, we'll move on to section 4 of the agenda. This is the consent calendar. We have 3 items on the consent calendar. Approval of the minutes of May 21st. Adoption of a final resolution regarding a short-term rental permit at 1220 Edwards Street, and a design review exemption for 1150 Main Street in the Central Business District. Members of the commission or members of the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be pulled for discussion. Is there any commissioner who would like to pull something from consent?
I would like to pull 4.3.
Very good. We'll set that aside for discussion. Anyone else on the commission? Are there any members of the public who would like to remove an item from consent? Seeing none, then I would entertain a motion for approval of items 4.1 and 4.2 on the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Gamero?
Commissioner Monette?
Yes.
Commissioner Hale?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Pont?
Yes.
Chair Hardy?
Yes. That brings us to item 4.3. Director House, will you be presenting the staff report?
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Hardy and members of the Commission. Item 4.3 is a design review exemption proposing to allow the installation of umbrellas, benches, and other minor exterior modifications to the existing structure and site at 1153 Main Street. 1153 Main is a quarter-acre parcel developed with a approximately 1,300 square foot convenience store and a gas station. What wasn't acknowledged or identified in the background section is that this site was previously subject to an administrative determination by the Planning Department, which was approved by the Planning Commission to allow the continuing use of a convenience store at this location. That was added to the agenda last week, and so it is available for the public and the commission to review. But just, it was background information that wasn't provided previously. The proposal is just to add benches, umbrellas, and some other minor exterior modifications to this structure. It's worth noting that all the features are proposed to be open to and available to the public during all hours of the business being operated. And so whether you are a patron of the business or not, you can take advantage of the benches, use the restroom, those types of things. They are accessible. Staff reviewed the proposal from the applicant in keeping with the general plan and zoning requirements, as well as those of CEQA, and as identified in the zoning district for central business, staff identified that the improvements were accessory to the primary use and clearly incidental and subordinate site features, and the changes raised no substantial design problems, and as such scheduled it for a design review exemption decision by the Planning Commission. happy to answer any questions. There's a resolution attached which identifies a number of conditions of approval.
Thank you, Director House. Commissioner Pont, why don't you begin?
Yeah, an easy one to start with. I looked at the plans, I can only see 4 stop blocks, but supposedly there's 5 parking spaces. Where's the 5th one?
The applicant can answer that question if you'd like.
Okay, I just thought maybe you would. We don't seem to have a definition for convenience foods in our ordinance anyplace, or even convenience store. It just is what it is. Has there been any historical definition of that at all?
So this was one of the kind of decision points regarding the administrative determination. Staff went back and forth with the applicant trying to define that, given the exact concerns that you've identified, to specify exactly what would be sold and provided in the store, and essentially to allow or to try to determine what is the definition of a convenience store, given ours is lacking. And that was included with the administrative determination that was provided to the Planning Commission.
I didn't see a definition for convenience.
It was more identified what is being proposed to be sold.
Okay. I mean, I saw this.
The applicant also provided some examples of potential benches that could be installed as a reference point for the commission.
Has the applicant already been issued a building permit for this work?
They've been issued a building permit for the site improvements and tenant improvements that have been ongoing.
Including this work?
I don't believe that all of this work is permitted. There may be some elements which would facilitate the installation of some of these, but again, the applicant can speak to that.
Okay. Okay. I'm wondering about 17136-080B3. And it starts off with a prohibition and then ends up with a list of things that are allowed. The prohibition is that all operations and display of merchandise will be kept within an improved structure. So that's the prohibition. Then it lists that which the exceptions, except those directly required for the dispensing of gasoline, water, and air, and the replenishment of oil. It doesn't seem to allow any other kind of use, operation, or display outside the interior of the structure. Is that?
So 17.136080 is titled Service Station Requirements. So none of the, I think this site was a service station at one point. However, now it's only proposed to operate as a gas station and a convenience store.
Well, number 5 includes the convenience store. So I would suggest this whole section B covers gasoline and convenience store. I don't see anything under 5 that would allow you to dispense or operate anything outside the enclosed structure.
Again, staff looked at that as specific to a service station. There's no automotive service proposed as an element of this, but the commission could choose to look at it that way.
I don't see anything under 5 that says, gee, convenience store items are accepted.
I don't understand your question.
So So looking at the service station definition, service station means a parcel of land or portion of a parcel of land developed exclusively for the purpose of and with facilities for the sale of motor vehicle fuels, which may also provide lubricants, tires, batteries, accessory items, and other customary services for motor vehicles, delivery of which is made directly to the vehicle. Servicing a motor vehicle shall be generally limited to lubrication, non-mechanical washing, replacement of spark plugs, and it goes into what defines service. And then says major vehicle repair is not permitted. For purposes of this title, the term shall also include gas station and accessories service station. So I think we're getting into a situation where our code it's kind of the antiquated elements of our code, and one of the kind of more convenient and or unique business models that's being proposed, and we just don't have a solid fit.
But it seems to be the only section that allows a convenience store is under B5. Would that be correct? That use, meaning the service station.
Aren't we just looking at the benches?
Because all the others start off with that use, whether they're talking about solely gasoline or petroleum products. So I would suggest that use is indeed the service station.
Permit thing.
Again, I think it says these are service station requirements, and then under B, which is B5, the following criteria shall be met prior to the approval of a service station. And then this is one of the specifics.
Has the service
So-
station been approved?
Excuse
No.
me.
Oh, okay.
And just a fair warning to all, we have a packed agenda tonight. So I'm going to be a bit more assertive in exercising my prerogative as chair to manage the discussion, not to cut anyone off unnecessarily or limit what you can say, but really just to keep things moving forward.
I'll hurry this up. How many seats do you expect to be provided?
There was no specific request, and staff didn't look at it. Again, given that it wasn't providing restaurant seats because there's no tables, it's proposing benches only. It wasn't seen as an expansion of the use, and further, that was supported by the fact that it's available and open to the public. Mm-hmm. So again, it's kind of a unique situation that did not fit clearly into our code, but provides significant community benefit from the staff perspective. And so staff, in looking at the project and the request as a whole, thought that this was the most appropriate process by which the Planning Commission and the public could both review and decide on the action, but also it not be somewhat of a onerous and extensive process for such a minor request.
So, because of the grade, this site only appears to have access from Main and Spring Street. Is that correct?
I believe that would be correct.
Pedestrians more.
Okay.
You mean car?
Pedestrian and vehicular access are both
Well,
from.
but only be Main and
One side.
Spring. In other words, you can't walk up from behind it. So, and the plan. That's probably enough for now.
Thank you. Are there any other commissioners who would like to address questions to Director Hausch? I see the applicant is here. Mr. Gott, would you like to say something to the commission at this point? Thank you.
Hello, Joel Gott, St. Helena. So the goal with what I was trying to create in the back there was, because it was just a paved piece of parking lot behind it that there was no way to really have cars egress in and out of anywhere efficiently, was to put that hedge in so that we have more green there, because it's a big land of asphalt, but keep the hedge at a low enough point that if you were at Klaus Cleaners or Sunshine, you could see out to Main Street. We didn't want to wall it off in any way, but to create some green. And then the best use of any benches or public space that I've seen is in Yountville, which we had the photo up there in front of Bouchon Bakery. Thomas Keller ended up putting over the last several years just benches throughout that area. And it's not a very big area, about the same square footage as probably what we're dealing with. And if you go there at any point during the day, it's this great environment, or even into the evenings, of people who are using it that either been to Bouchon Bakery or over at Vintage 1870. So it's this great, if you would, little town meeting area. And downtown in that district, we don't have kind of a public area. So my thought was the best use of the space was to somehow activate it with some green screen, some shade. I put a hand washing sink out there. We got a public restroom, and to put park benches so that anybody, if your significant other is at Vintage Home buying something, you got a place to sit, or if you got a burrito at Villa Corona, you could sit there and eat it, or if you're just killing time, you got a place to kill time. Give us some green screen. So to me, it was the best use of like turning it into a public space. And that picture does pretty good justice, but anytime anybody's in Yountville driving by, watch the number of people that sit there. It's this great, mix of tourists and locals. So I thought it was a great use.
Thank you. Are
Can
there
I-
any questions for Mr. Gott?
Yeah, is there any way to safely put a little pedestrian path in the green, a space in the green, so that when I'm walking around, I can enter from the parking lots? Or
So
I don't know if that's
we
safe.
looked at doing that, and there's a grade difference there. And my fear is that there would be some sort of issue between a parking space, like as you're leaving an active parking lot. Now, today when I was there, I was going between the bushes because you can just jump down if there's nobody
Right.
there. But I would also worry that I'd be taking one of Sunshine's or Klaus or the pizza place or laundromat's parking space. So I left the two big open ends on either end, and then we designed this cool, it's a, what do you call it, like a parking bollard, like a safety bollard, so that somebody pulling in to get fuel can't run into somebody entering or exiting any points of that or into the back.
Okay.
So it's just a nicely designed, like handrail bollard system.
Thanks. Thank
Are
you.
there any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, if I can.
You may.
I'll try and be brief. To start with, I only see 4 stop blocks. Where's the 5th space?
I don't have a pointer, but I can show you on this plan. So over here, this is Main Street right here, right?
Could you switch to A1?
It's right here. It's on the edge, so there's no parking block there. That's the 5th space.
Okay,
yeah.
so you're going to stripe it, but not have a stop block.
Yeah, and to be honest with
That's
you,
probably not the best idea.
Yeah, one big, the problem that we're running into there, the more time I've been there, is when big trucks, because that's only diesel in town. So when a big truck is fueling up, they need almost more space than we technically have there. So I'm a little nervous about how that parking space will be used. And you can't run them in any further because it makes it more. So we were going to go out and really mark out the rest of them and then see what the real use of the big trucks are, then come back and stripe it with what reality is so the trucks can get in and out of there.
So you might end up with 4 rather than 5.
We can actually we could stack a 5th one if need be over on the curb where our garbage is.
Okay.
Because we're going away from the rolling big bins, the yard bins, down to the, like what people have at their houses. We're able to go into those away from the big stuff, so we can, if need be, put our 5th there.
It looks like most of the interior building is blocked off for staff only.
Yep.
So how is this intended to work?
So the main goal is everything you can buy at a convenience store, but we want to make it. We want to make like 90% of it. So we're making everything that we're going to sell there over at the Cindy's Backstreet building, which we just finished. And then we've got a delivery truck, which is supposed to be electric, but it wasn't delivered on time. So we got a little Ford one for the time being. And it'll be brought over 3 times a day from that kitchen, restocked into the gas station building.
So you're going to sell sandwiches,
Chips.
burritos.
No, I'm trying not to. I don't want to poach on like Villa Corona's business or Sunshine's build sandwich business. So we're going to have 3 or 4 sandwiches we're going to pre-make. We make all the bread, and then we'll pre-make them, pre-wrap them in a PLA bag. And then like the chips we'll fry every day. We'll do them in a paper bag. We've got a grain bowl and a little salad, a couple of juices that we'll make. And then a couple, like we've got a full coffee set up in there too. So essentially similar to like what you could get at the 76, instead of mass market production, we're going to make it internally, make it from scratch.
But you are providing seating. That's the difference.
Yeah, there will be somebody will buy something in our store and then walk outside and sit for sure. But my goal is to make it so it's more like what you see in front of Bouchon, where it's community seating. That's what we put the public bathroom into. I want to try to activate that area so that it's more used.
How many seats you're going to provide?
Well, Karen, our architect, is here in the 3rd row on the right-hand side. And so
Spotlight.
Karen and I have talked about everything from 6 really big park benches to having, there's a great metal shop guy over behind Central Valley about having to make custom legs and doing one really long one that snakes alongside the hedge. We looked at the ones that Karen put up in the presentation, or ones that we could buy from like a commercial, like where the city park benches came from. Yeah, like that's a commercial one that you can buy. So we were going to try to find what we thought would fit. Those are actually really comfortable. You instantly slouch in them. So I think we would
I
just
vote for comfort.
we would go and find what we think would be long-lasting, low maintenance, and super durable. Because undoubtedly, you know, they're going to get trashed in some way. We thought these ones are pretty cool, platform ones. Yeah. So you could sit there with a group of friends, you know, 3 people on each side, all having a different conversation, kids standing on top of it.
So your model includes some idea that people could buy at your store, turn the corner and sit down and eat.
Yep. I would say the majority of our revenue will come from pickup from the office community in town and walk back to their office or to wherever they end up eating lunch. There'll be another set of tourist community that's a walk in, grab a coffee, and walk up to Model Bakery. There'll be another group that somebody goes to Villa Corona, picks up a burrito, picks up a pre-made from us, and sits down, or a sunshine sandwich. So I think it'll be a pretty good mix.
That's probably enough.
Very good. Are there any other questions for Mr. Gott? Thank you.
Thanks. Just one last thing. Thank you,
Yes.
Noah, for everything for our town. Much appreciated. We're going to miss you.
I will open the public hearing. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment on this application?
Hi, I'm Christine Hale from St. Helena, and I just want to say that little corner is kind of ugly, and this will be beautiful. And I think it would be a huge addition, and having somewhere to sit there. If you've ever bought a sunshine sandwich, there's nowhere to sit. So, thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion. I think I need to hear now from everyone but John, not to exclude you from further comments, but I need to understand where the rest of the commission is here. Ms. Manette?
I think it's a wonderful plan. I really like it, and I like the ambience that it suggests, and I'm certainly going to use it and just to sit, and you could play chess or cards on those big benches, and so I really like this project. I have no problem with it at all.
Commissioner Hale?
I think it's terrific and sensitive to the original building and sensitive to the town. I think it's providing a lot of that it doesn't even have to community amenity. You know, I think we've got all of a sudden we've got more public bathroom space that we hem and haw and complain about, and somebody's doing it, and I think we should applaud that. And I think we should also point out that that's not a necessary thing. That's a choice that somebody makes, that a business person in our community has made, and I applaud it. I think bring it on. Let's bring this to a vote and get it.
Thank you. Commissioner Anderson?
I like it. I think it's a good addition. I walk around town a lot with my family, and I think it'd be a nice place to stop and rest and wash grubby little hands.
Can I add one sentence? I'm hoping
Yes.
for some organic and gluten-free.
You're on your own with that one, Mr. Gott.
You got to see what we wrote in the restroom, though. If everybody gets a chance in the next couple of weeks.
Graffiti?
We pre-graffitied it.
Okay, if I see any gluten-free remarks in there, I'll make a note.
If I could.
Please.
Although the applicant has a great track record in town, well-known, liked, the unfortunate part of this is once we act, that becomes permanent. That's a permanent addition to this site. He doesn't own it, somebody else could have it. And that's where more of my problem comes from than not. Because frankly, the code doesn't seem to allow it under strictest reading. On top of that, we have 40 seats back there, 50 seats back there, and they're serving food. So what we have, or could have, if somebody chose to operate it that way, would be a 50-seat open-air fast food restaurant that we are backing into without permits, without consideration, without sufficient parking, right next to a parking lot that's already overloaded. So I'm not impugning your ideas or your approach. I'm just thinking 10, 15 years down the line, when somebody else owns this, sees what it potentially could be, and runs it like a 40 or 50 seat fast food restaurant with no parking that they have no responsibility for. A total bloody mess.
There's protection for that, though.
No, there isn't, the way this is written.
Gentlemen, if there's going to be dialogue, both parties need to be at a microphone.
Because it's convenience food, which is kind of undefined in the code at this point. And since if we do change the code, this used to be grandfathered. So this is a permanent addition to the Commonweal. And I don't know if we want to back into a 50-seat or a 40-seat fast food restaurant, particularly when we have two other places in town that can come forward and make the same argument. That's my fear, and I don't see anything preventing that here.
Mr. Gott, would you like to speak to that? I'm happy to reopen the public hearing. No? Then I will not. Well, I guess I'm genuinely in the middle here in the sense that I think the project's brilliant, but I'm, if not as uncomfortable as Commissioner Punt, I'm certainly generally distressed by the number of times we find ourselves making what could, I think, fairly be called generous or even creative interpretation of the code in order to allow a project we find, meritorious on its own feet, to allow it to go forward. Of all of the concerns I've heard articulated, the one that seems most immediate to me is the potential conflict with the Sunshine parking lot, which is already problematic in terms of conflict between parking for the merchants who occupy the property and have the rights to the parking, and use by people who find it simply a convenient spot to park. And I will confess I am one of those guilty parties from time to time. That's an issue that we could address simply by approving projects subject to a review in a specified period of time, 1 year or 2 years, just to inquire and to give the merchants behind this property an opportunity to let us know if they had an issue with how it was functioning in terms of parking. I don't think that's that's a kind of issue that could actually turn into a real conflict. I agree with Mr. Punt. We always need to make our decisions with awareness that the entitlements we create run with the property, and no matter how much we're impressed by the applicant, we can't assume that the applicant will always be the property owner and the manager of the operation. With all that said, what really strikes me most strongly about this particular situation is we have a proposal here that's designed, I think, authentically to add some life to that particular part of Main Street at a time when there's concern from merchants from one end of Main Street to the other that there isn't enough life and activity, that there aren't enough customers coming to their stores. And I don't know that this particular proposal does anything for other retailers on Main Street. I just don't know. But I do know, I believe, this is just a personal belief really, that long-term Main Street has got to be more appealing to the people who come to St. Helena, who might consider coming to St. Helena as a place for pedestrian activity and shopping and eating, in order to strengthen the businesses on Main Street. And we've got at the end of this long agenda, I think, a presentation about Main Street beautification. So it's not simply on my mind, it is in some sense on the agenda today. I would support approval subject to a review. Honestly, although it's typical to make reviews at 1 year, I think that's probably premature. I would make it a review in 2 years, just so that we find out if there are any issues with the operation.
What would that be a review for? What we're granting tonight, so that it could be rescinded, or how would that work?
I would be happy to focus it particularly on concern about potential parking conflicts with the adjoining property. That to me is the most obvious subject for review. Another concern, I'll sort of rephrase what Commissioner Pontes said, would be the prospective conversion of the type of convenience store that's proposed into something better classified as a restaurant.
So then the review would kind of determine whether there should need to be a use permit or something changed? Because my sense is the parking thing is going to be very difficult to determine, because it's quite possible that people that are going to patronize this place are going to be people coming with sandwiches from Sunshine, going to be pedestrians or people who get gas there, who buy things to put in their cars. And how do you determine if the parking issue in the Sunshine parking lot and the Class Cleaners parking lot is from that business and not just from, an increase in, it seems to me that would be very difficult to determine.
Well, I don't know that we'd
And
be in a
impossible to
position
fix.
of determining anything exactly like that. It's an opportunity for neighboring businesses and property owners to let us know if they think there's a problem, and then we take it from there.
Okay, though I noticed
but
they're
honestly,
not here tonight.
if
But how would we fix it? I guess I'm just curious if I vote yes for that motion, I want to know what I'm voting for. That's why I'm asking this. And so I would be okay with the with looking at the use, if it actually turns into an outdoor restaurant more than it's anticipated at this point, that we might look in terms of that use, or I'm not sure what we would do in 2 years.
nor am I really. What that does is it brings the project back into a public meeting on a planning commission agenda that creates an opportunity for people to inform us whether they like what's going on or not. And then whether or not there's something we can or should do, we have to determine.
That would be determined then, because the idea wouldn't be if there's a lot of complaint, then something will be rescinded, because that would seem to me to be the only reason you'd want to review it in 2 years. If it's bad, then you change it. But I don't get how it works.
It works the way I just said. We have to figure it out as we go along. It either works that way or it doesn't work at all. Most of the time, very little happens at reviews because most of the time projects work the way they're intended to work. It's a rare occasion I can't actually think of one where projects come back here or any other jurisdiction I know for a review where some great issue has turned up. The only context in St. Helena that doesn't fit that has been with the short-term rentals.
Short-term rentals, I was just going to say.
Short-term rentals have been their own thing, and yes, the periodic reviews have made a difference and have led to termination of some of those permits, which are terminable anyway by their terms. They don't run forever. But I'm not. I could be persuaded that we should just approve it and leave that alone. But my mind is open to taking Commissioner Punt's concerns into account through setting a scheduled review, just to see if there are any problems that need addressing. So that's.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And if there's no other discussion, then this would be the time for someone to make a motion.
I guess I would have to weigh in on the parking situation or the review part before I would. I mean, I'd be happy to make a motion to approve it without a review kind of piece in there. The problem I see with the review is how are we not setting precedent for any business? I mean, the way I understand the parking, Sunshine Parking is a private parking, and it's posted as, you're not technically allowed to park there and not, use those businesses. We all know that happens. But who's to say, how are we, treating this applicant, or how are we not setting precedent for 3 doors down from this applicant that a business changes that starts to be successful? And they obviously don't. They're not providing their own parking, and those folks end up parking. I mean, the parking is a problem that we may need to address as a city, but I don't think shouldn't encumber this. I don't believe it should encumber this applicant or this application. I think, as far as convenience, I mean, talking about fast food, I think that's totally inappropriate to even, discuss in regard to this. That's not what's being approved here. The food's being made off-site. It's dovetailed in as a convenience store, and it's creatively sort of alternative sourcing. But it's not a fast food restaurant by definition, and I think we do a disservice to ourselves as a commission and to this town when we throw that out at an applicant. I think we should be clear that this is what it is, and the sky's not falling. We can't guard against success, and I think we've been. I think we've got an application before us that's creative and intelligent and sensitive, and provides much more than many alternatives might, and we should applaud that, not encumber it, not take that as a opportunity to dig an extra layer of skin out of our applicant. So I would happily move to approve it, and I guess that's what I'm doing. So I would make a motion.
Was that a motion?
That is a motion.
Second.
Any further discussion?
If I could.
Yes.
The difference here, Daniel, is the seating. That's what changes this potentially from a convenience market into something else. And I've been places, and you probably have too, that what started off as a convenience market is now significantly more than that. And I'm afraid that this is being backed into as significantly more than that. We're going to allow seating. They sell food. I hate to say this, but that's pretty much quick food. That's pretty much the definition of a fast food restaurant.
I'm going to leave the public hearing closed. We're behind schedule already.
Out of the consent calendar.
So I've got a motion, I've got a second. I'll make a further comment. If the seating has the greatest downside here, I would, and I'm not sure I disagree with that as a, long-term potential. I think it's also got the greatest upside for the community, and so I'm willing to take that chance. Ms. Gamara, would you call the vote, please?
Commissioner Hale?
Yes.
Commissioner Monette?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Pont?
No.
Chair Hardy?
Yes. That brings us to public hearings. We have 4 public hearings, and then the scheduled matter, which is the presentation on downtown streetscape. Again, it's just the nature of the agenda. I will have my eye on the clock, and I am going to try to move this along as best I can. Not sure how much I can do, but we'll see. The first item is 5.1. This is design review and demolition permit for 1443 Stockton Street. Mr. Guston, it looks like this one is yours. Will you be presenting the staff report?
No, sir. This is going to be a request for a continuance from the applicant who is unable to attend and could not get a representative here.
Okay. Well, I believe
fast as I
it
can
is. I should be so lucky. So then I will open the public hearing, as it is a noticed public hearing. The public hearing is open. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to this matter? If not, and I see none, the public hearing is closed. So it is, I believe, under the circumstances at the commission's discretion whether or not to continue. And is this a request to continue to a date certain? Or are we in the unfortunate position of really not knowing?
As of this afternoon, the last email I got was today was the applicant's daughter's graduation, and things were unfolding too fast for her to make a decision. I told her that we would recommend continuance to the next Planning Commission meeting, June 18th, and she would let me know within the next day or two whether that was doable, and we can adjust accordingly.
So staff is recommending the commission continue to a date certain of June 18th, and if that's not able to be met, the applicant will have to pay an additional public hearing fee for a renoticing.
Can we continue the continuance if June 18th doesn't work for the applicant?
Staff can look into that option to try to save the notice cost.
Okay. Move to continue.
Well, I have a question. What if we continued it to a date uncertain? Then would would the applicant have more input to and not have to do the other fees?
If it's a date uncertain, that we have to renotice it, so the
Okay.
fee will be required. I don't believe we'll be able to continue it twice to a date certain, but continuing to the June 18th is the only way that we can, as of right now, guarantee that there is at least an effort to try to save the applicant that fee.
Could we continue to July?
That would be another option, however, it was not discussed with the applicant.
It's okay.
All right,
okay with
move to continue to June 18th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Oh, yeah.
Will we actually have a design to review at that point?
We've got one now.
I don't see it.
That one's on me, Mr. Chairman. That was my error. So it kind of worked out that a convenient way to save face for my mistake was her sending me an email saying that she couldn't make it anyway. So I'm owning that mistake. It was
So the mistake being simply that the materials were not
complete.
complete.
Yeah. So I got lucky.
And incomplete as of you don't have them
No,
yet?
we had them.
You had them. They simply weren't provided in the packet.
The
Okay,
Planning
very good.
Commission has the materials, and the publicly available packet has the materials. They were not available on the digital publication of the agenda online.
Ah, I see. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is a motion, there is a second. Is there any further discussion? I'm seeing and hearing none, Ms. Gamero. I think we're ready for the vote.
Vice Chair Pont?
Yes.
Commissioner Monette?
Yes.
Commissioner Hale?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Chair Hardy?
Yes. That brings us to 5.2, which is design review and demolition permit for 1114 Church Street. Again, Mr. Guston, I believe this one is yours?
Yes, thank you, Chair Hardy. This is a request to construct a new accessory building in the rear of the property. It's a building that will be used with have an accessory dwelling unit, a garage, and a workshop, 3 separate uses. The building will be 15 feet high, single-story, wood board and bat siding, dormers with windows, and a metal ribbed roof. As far as its location on the property, it's at the very rear, 5 feet from the rear setback and 5 feet from both side yard setbacks, and it's approximately 27 feet behind the main residence, which will stay the same. In terms of lot coverage, the property itself is 11,925 square feet. The total coverage with the new building and the existing building will be 3,088 square feet for a lot coverage of 25.8%, where 45% is allowed by code. The floor area ratio is also below standard. It'll have a total floor area ratio of 21%, where 29% is allowed. So the project conforms to all applicable zoning code requirements. We also believe that this building meets the criteria for design review approval. In terms of water, the demolished building that was there had 1 bedroom, 1 kitchen, and 1 bathroom. And the staff report outlines all of the plumbing fixtures that will be going in, and in the interest of saving some time, I don't think they need to be repeated. But what we want to do is to make sure that we stay within the water neutrality guidelines. So staff is recommending 2 rather unique conditions. Number 1 is that no portion of the area shown on the approved plans as a garage or workshop shall have plumbing and shall not be used for living, sleeping, or any form of habitable space at any time. And the other one is for the building department, as the applicant will be required to retrofit all of the plumbing fixtures in the main residence as a condition of a building permit, and will have to be completed before the certificate of occupancy on the new building. As it pertains to the demolition permit, as you know, the requirement is for approval of a design review prior to approval of a demolition permit. The applicant has acknowledged that on a weekend he removed the dilapidated structure. Some photographs were provided, and it met the criteria. It just was done without going through the proper channels. The building had no architectural or historic significance, and it could be said that removing that building was actually an improvement to the neighborhood. And I'm not meaning that to be disparaging to the applicant, but it was in pretty sad shape. The project is exempt from CEQA, and we have not received any correspondence, and no other issues have been identified since the preparation of the staff report. So with that, staff would recommend that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution finding that the project is exempt from CEQA and accept the required findings and approve the requested demolition and design permit subject to the findings and conditions in the resolution. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff? Commissioner Pond?
Just one. Is there going to be any consequence to the applicant for the demolition without permit?
The building permit fees will be doubled.
Okay. I mean, I realize this isn't the same situation that we ran across several months ago, but nonetheless.
It could just awkward position for me to be in. But it would be the demolition permit fee would be doubled, not the building permit fee for the accessory building?
So
it's clarification for the applicant.
Sure. So the code reads, and this is as adopted by the City Council, any action to remedy unpermitted building has to be, any building permit that's identified as remedying an unpermitted building code violation is required to be double feed. There are some identified penalties for zoning code violations, such as some of the things we discussed at the last short-term rental discussion. However, it's this understanding of staff that typically would be processed as a criminal penalty under a misdemeanor, and the city attorney's office has very strong opinions regarding how the DA proceeds with those, and so typically we do not proceed with the $1,000 a day per penalty per violation misdemeanor prosecutions. In this situation, this is not it is a zoning violation, but staff has not pursued that through the administrative hearing process, and we would double fee the building permits. I understand that doesn't necessarily answer the exact question, and I need to do some research and consult with the city attorney regarding which fees would actually be required to be doubled. Some portion of the building permit fees will be doubled.
Thank you. For the record, I just want to point out that part of the demolition permit application process involves getting clearance from the Bay Area air quality folks, and involves some attention to whether or not there are hazardous materials, asbestos and lead paint being the classic concerns with a typical small residential structure. So there are some health and safety precautions that are built into the process for obtaining a demolition permit that just don't get addressed when a property owner skips the process. But that said, are there any other questions for staff? Seeing none, is the applicant or the applicant's representative here to address the commission? Please come forward.
Hello, I'm Leslie Wightman. We're aware of the issues raised with proceeding without the permit. It was, in our view, necessary because the building was falling down. Having said that, we understand your concerns, and we're just hopeful that you agree with the plans. It is, as he said, really the saddest looking house on the block, perhaps in town. So we're trying to rectify that. It's our retirement home, so we want to work with the city to make you proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant?
Well, I was wondering, are you going to, so are you
Please
living
come
in,
back
yeah,
to
you have
the
come back to-
microphone.
So is anyone living in the house that's still standing?
Yes.
You guys are?
Yes.
And then, so the back building is going to be for you guys. That's the shop?
Yes,
And
and
okay, so
garage.
you're going to stay there?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Wasn't sure.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
The public hearing is open. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak to this project? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
Move the staff recommendation.
Second.
Any discussion?
We're trying to keep up with your accelerated schedule.
You know, I'm
You scared us.
I'm a happy guy. I'm a happy guy. Okay, I see no one asking for discussion. I've heard a motion and a second. Ms. Gamaro, please.
Vice Chair Pont,
Yes.
Commissioner Monette,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hale,
Yes.
and Chair Hardy.
Yes. That brings us to item 5.3, which is a request for a demolition permit and design review approval in connection with a single-family residence at 1616 Madrona Avenue. Mr. Hickok, do you have a report to present?
And we're going to start with Commissioner Hale recusing himself.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's his
excuse
house.
me.
I'm going to have to.
Excuse me?
I'm going to have to.
Oh, that's
change
right.
Position in the room here.
Okay.
So we're going to be short on Hale.
What's the reason? Oh, it's your house. You live with
Well, this is kind of awkward because you're going to need to leave, but your wife gets to stay. Oh, you're going to speak to us.
No, I'm the applicant.
Okay. Well,
That's okay.
we're not quite ready for the applicant. Mr. Hickok.
Yes. So the applicant is seeking demolition permit and design review approval to demolish the existing home and associated structures in order to construct a new approximately 2,000 square foot, one-story, single-family residence with a 227 square foot attached garage. The proposed residence would have 3 bedrooms and 3.5 baths, and as stated in the plans, the new home would be finished with a variety of modern materials, including blackened wax steel, cement stucco, wood planking, and a corrugated metal roof. The height of the home at its highest point would be approximately 22.5 feet, which is approximately 10 feet taller than the home that is there now. The subject property is located in the medium-density residential district, and the reconstruction of an existing single-family home is permitted in the medium-density residential district. It should be noted that St. Helena Municipal Code Section 17.1.12.060A projections into required yards and setbacks permits architectural features less than 15 feet in length, such as a bay window, as in this case, to extend into any required setback at a distance of not more than 2 feet. The proposed bedroom on the western front elevation does have a bay window that is approximately 11 feet in length and does extend 2 feet into the required setback, which is why in the table showing compliance with the development standards, the front setback is noted at 18 feet. The project as proposed does meet all development standards as required in the St. Helena Municipal Code, including lot coverage, setbacks, floor area, and height, and would provide a new modernized housing opportunity within the city. Additionally, the home was designed to be compatible with the site and the surrounding neighborhood. And for these reasons, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission determine that the project is exempt from the requirements of CEQA pursuant to sections 15301 and 15303, and accept the required findings and approve a resolution granting demolition permit and design review approval for the proposed demolition and new construction on the property located at 1616 Madrona. Staff is happy to answer any questions you may have, and the applicant is here to speak on behalf of the project as well.
I know it's in here, but what's the cross street?
It's in between Hillview and Stockton. It's in between Vineyard and Stockton.
On the north side of the street.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Are there any questions for staff?
Well, one quick statement, and then a question. I notice under the background, this says it's located on the north side of Madrona, which is fine. But one of the other staff reports had a parcel that was supposedly on the south side of Stockton. That doesn't work. I recognize the orientation isn't exactly north-south, but I hope in the future the city picks a standardized direction. I would suggest the Caltrans direction, which would make 29 north. Thank you. So I just noticed that reading the two staff reports, and it was a little odd. The only real question I have here, and this isn't so much about the property or the project, which I think is in scope and scale for the neighborhood and looks just fine, but this is frankly on the wording on one of the FAR exemptions. C2. Once again, excuse me, I'm doing this all electronically, so I have to scan. 1740070 C2. The way it's written, there doesn't seem to be any limit, although this doesn't affect the project, I just brought this up. There doesn't seem to be any limit to how many non-habitable accessory structures of 120 square feet or under that a property may have. So you could dot them all over as long as you meet the separation requirements. That's just something to add to the notes to please fix in the future. You know, we don't want somebody coming in saying, I want 50 120 square foot accessory buildings, and by our code, we couldn't say no. Just food for thought. Otherwise, I have no comment on this project. It looks good. Nice drawings, Daniel.
Any other questions for staff? Then I'd like to invite the applicant to speak, please. Mr. Hale.
Hello, Daniel Hale, 1616 Madrona. We've been living in the existing house for about a year now, and in that time, you know, kind of honed in, refined, came up with what we believe is kind of the sweet spot of a solution that sort of addresses the site, addresses the kind of flow of kind of the energy flow of the neighborhood, you know, kind of observing kind of different things that happen through the day, the way the light goes through the site, and we came up with a solution that I believe is sensitive to that set of issues, and it, you know, I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to creating it. So happy to answer any questions that you have.
Are there any questions for the applicant?
Well, what's it like to be there? I mean, that must have been quite a process. You don't have to answer.
No, I think this is a great kind of empathic moment for all of us, you know, by extension or you know, personally. I think it helps us all to have to kind of switch hats and be up on the other end of things. But
Amen to that. Any other questions for the applicant? Then I will open the public hearing. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
Move the staff recommendation.
Oh, we're on an accelerated path tonight.
Well, you keep kicking me under the table, damn it.
My legs aren't that long. There is a motion.
Well, I can second it, but I would like to say something.
You can speak before or after. I'm not going to close discussion with a second.
Yeah, second.
Any further discussion?
Well, yeah, I must say, I'm not certain. I just took the ethics course that we were supposed to take today, and I'm not certain that I don't have a bias here. But even so, I mean, I don't know that one can ever not have any bias. But being as objective as possible, I really support this application.
Well, it would be a shame if we all had to recuse ourselves.
I know, and that's what I'm thinking.
But glossing right over that concern, is there any other discussion? Then Ms. Camaro.
Vice Chair Pont?
Yes.
Commissioner Monette?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Chair Hardy?
Yes. Okay, you can come back now. And that brings us to our fourth and last public hearing, but not the end of the agenda. This is the design review for the OK Tire project at 1025 Dowdell Lane, and I believe this is yours, Mr. Gustin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for a design review to construct, or excuse me, a use permit to construct a prefabricated steel structure with 4,628 square feet. The site is the site that 3 years ago the Planning Commission approved a use permit to convert the single-family residence and some of the other existing buildings into the second fire station, Station 217. So this would be located behind the fire facility. Excuse me, there'll be approximately 1,098 square feet allocated to reception, restrooms, employee break area, and office space, with the balance of approximately 3,530 square feet for the service bays. The applicant is proposing to provide 18 parking spaces, which is 9 more than required. The colors proposed are cool desert beige and cool emerald green. And I did that with a straight face. So access to the site will be from the existing driveway on Dowdell Lane, and it'll be improved to full city standards, and the sidewalk will be repaired as necessary. Floor area ratio for the whole property is at 0.26, which is well below the allowable of 0.50. The landscaping meets all of the minimum standards for the city. The project is categorically exempt under CEQA as an infill development project, and staff is of the opinion that it meets all the criteria for approval of a design review. We have no issues identified other than those that were in the staff report, and we received one piece of communication in support of the project, which I believe was distributed to the Planning Commission today. So with that, staff's recommend would be that the Planning Commission adopt the resolution finding that the project is exempt from CEQA, and to approve the resolution with the findings and conditions recommended in the staff report. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Gustin. Are there any questions of staff?
I have.
Please.
Well, go ahead. I was just wondering why. What's the reason for the move?
The reason for the move, I would defer to the applicant on that.
Okay, I'll wait then for that.
Commissioner Pond.
A couple things. This is a non-conforming lot, correct? It's a non-conforming lot.
Well, it would be a legal non-conforming lot. It
Yes.
would only be non-conforming if it was created.
Yes. And there is also a legal non-conforming grandfathered use on it, correct?
That I'm not aware of. The fire station.
The
was approved-
house.
That was approved
The
by use permit.
residence.
So
The
it's-
house.
The house was part of the fire station, according to
But
the
they
file.
didn't build it. It was already there, correct?
I won't argue.
Yeah, that the limits appear to be in code 850 square feet for a dwelling unit on an industrial lot in which a caretaker or the owner of the business must reside. I think we're okay with saying that the fireman or fire person would be a caretaker, but nonetheless that the house is too large. I just would like it noted somewhere in the resolution that this is a non-conforming lot with a non-conforming use. Other than that, I see absolutely no problem with this, but it just, we need to fill in the details because planning is an exercise in detail. That was it.
Thank you.
And I suppose I should confess that I do indeed use the services of the applicant, have for the past quarter century, and assuming I can find the new place, will continue to do so.
When you can't find it, Commissioner Pont, I'm going to worry. Are there any other?
My glasses.
Are there any other questions for staff? Seeing and hearing none, I'll invite the applicant or the applicant's representative to speak, please.
We've been part of this community for, I came here in '77. This little
State
town.
your name, please,
My
for
name
the
is Sean
record.
Wilson, applicant of the 1025 Dowdell Lane. But as far as, being part of this community, I've been here since '77. My parents moved up here when I was like 9 years old. My wife is a Rutherford. Her parents have been here forever. But, just as far as you asked about the, why are we deciding to move? The main thing is, where we reside now, we basically lease that. So my fear is being a business owner. Every year I'm like worried about, am my lease going to be there? Am I going to be there? My main goal has been able to try to continue on to have it where it's my place to reside a business, or my kids can take it on and continue it on too. That's why I've done what I'm trying to do. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Carice Wilson. I'm Sean's wife. We are proposing this for our property. We have owned this property for a couple of years, and I will tell you that we were going to remodel our house and took the money and invested it in this property. So we're living in a one-bedroom house right now. All four of us are home from college, but we truly believe in our kids. Our son here will be graduating from St. Helena High School Friday, so we brought our graduate. And like Sean said, we both graduated from St. Helena High School together in 1988, as did my parents in 1963. So we're longtime residents. My mom is a Rutherford, is in the town. We've lived here for a long time. And knowing the way this town is developing, we bought this property in hopes that we would establish some property for our children, something to pass down to our kids. Every parent's hope is to make their children better off, and that's our hope. Our son will be attending Wyotech in the fall, so he will be licensed to also be helping us out. After that, we don't know where he'll transfer, but we have a lot of hope in him and a lot of faith in our kids. Both will be returning home. Our daughter will be graduating next year with a ag business and Spanish major, so in hopes to come back home. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? I'm seeing none. Thank you. We'll open the public hearing. The public hearing is open, and finally, we have someone who wants to talk to us.
Tim Doran, I own the property directly east of Sean's project, and I think it's a great application for that lot. I looked into buying that lot several years ago, and it's really a tough project if you're just using it for a rental, but for when you're occupying and putting a business there, which is the perfect step because he's been in business there a long time. OK Tire's been in business 30 years?
No,
you haven't, but
it's been in town since '54.
Yeah.
Anyway, as
Long
a neighbor of most of the eastern boundary, I certainly approve of that project.
Thank you, Mr. Doran. Be still my heart. We have two.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission, and thank you for hearing this application from the Wilson family tonight. I just want to applaud the Wilson family, first of all, for taking the guts and the gumption to put their money into this town. They busted their tails to make this happen. They paid a lot of money for that property, and they need your support to make sure to see it through without any delays, with all the help that you can give them. They're a local family doing good things for our town. Just this morning, I took my car in there to have the van tires checked, and Sean took care of rotating them. Said, thanks a bunch. See you later. That's what we need more of in this town. We have it right here. Let's make sure it stays. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing.
Can I ask the applicants a question? I forgot. Yeah, should I do that now or later? Up to you.
No, I think I should reopen the public hearing, so you can do that now. Please, would the applicant come forward? We have another question.
Just a question, yeah. And this, I apologize. I should know this from this material, but I don't remember. So you guys are going to be living in the house? No. So the firemen are still going to be living in the house? Okay. So it's just okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're going
to kind of. I mean, speaking of that, the whole thing with, as far as I know, probably 90% of these people in this town, between Napa, everybody know the fire department kind of asked. I know they were looking for places to put their guys up. They were shorthanded on, putting their men somewhere to be able to be part of the volunteer fire department, which is, it was really hard to keep these local kids here.
Right.
So I went to Chief John and I said, I have this house. He said, I'm willing to, what can we do to make this work for you? It works for me. It works for you guys.
Okay.
The whole plan is never moving in there as a full residence of anything. As far as I know, when we bought the property, it was a commercial residential piece of property. But it's only going to be for the fire department. I mean, or somebody in that situation.
I was just worried about your one-room house where you are.
Yeah,
No, we're actually we're living in the guest home, remodeling, but the remodeling is taking a lot longer than we thought due to lack of money.
Okay.
But
so there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Managing.
Okay. That helps. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. The public hearing is open. Is there anyone who'd like to speak? I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Pond.
Since the code specifically allows for conforming uses on non-conforming lots, as long as all the zoning codes are met, and this project does, I will move the staff recommendation on it.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Well, I'll just add, OK Tires saved my life any number of times. Tire issues, in my personal experience, have a way of increasing dramatically as soon as teenage drivers enter the scene. I think I'm just about finished with that phase, but Malcolm's car is home for the summer, so maybe not quite yet. This is an essential business that provides a great service, and it's great that they're able to do this in a way that conforms to all the requirements on a non-conforming lot. So if there's no further discussion, and I see none, then Ms. Gamaro, would you please take the vote?
Vice Chair Pont?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Monette?
Yes.
Commissioner Hale?
Yes.
Chair Hardy?
Yes. Thank you.
And I'd just like to give some credit to our consulting planner, Christopher Gustin, who stomped on the accelerator and really made a lot of effort to get this project before the commission. And so Chris really got it here quickly, and I just really want to say thank you to him, because he really has been great for the department and the community.
So he was smoking the tires? That means he's going to need a new set.
Thank you. So that concludes the public hearings and brings us to our one scheduled matter. The real reason I was trying to keep the ball moving was so that we wouldn't keep our Public Works Director up late. I'm pretty sure this is the only reason she's here. Could be wrong, but I don't think so. So this is item 6.1, which is a presentation on the downtown streetscape update. Would you like to introduce this item, Ms.?
I don't want to steal Gates and Associates thunder here. We have Linda Gates here,
Okay.
but which I did last time. But we're here for a second round of comments from the public outreach that we've kicked off about 2 months ago now.
Yeah.
And extensive community engagement. So we're waiting for the overhead to come up, and so we can see the presentation that Gates has put together based on public input. And I'll let her talk from now because I'll steal it.
Okay, well, we're just stalling for time because I don't know how to talk unless there's an exhibit because I need to move my hands.
Give me 2 seconds here. I'll pull it up.
If you need a restroom break, you can. I mean, I'm so impressed with how you move the agenda along. I was like, whoa, I'm going to start putting stuff out in the universe.
He speaks, we listen.
I know. I was like, whoa.
I'm not going to put too much weight on that. But thank you. Well,
Okay, I'm going to introduce myself. Okay, how about that? I'm Linda Gates with Gates and Associates. We're landscape architects. Actually, we're subconsultants to BCAF, who are the engineers who are hired to undertake this project. And so, as I've said before, we get to do the fun stuff, and they have to make it work. So this is really wonderful yin-yang relationship. We get to work with the community and find out what they really want and what will work and draw the pretty pictures and talk to people, and they get to go meet with Caltrans. I just, I've got the greatest job in the world, right? And I give them nothing but trouble. So, can I just tell you to move to the next slide? Okay, perfect. So, I'm going to refresh you, and a lot of you guys, oh God, I've heard this spiel 1,000 times, and other people may not, but the city got a grant to do improvements on Main Street, which is the yellow line there, for something like $1.2 million for the improvements themselves, which is pretty amazing, and they should be congratulated for that. And then wisely said, we want to look at sort of the overall downtown, the green area, so that as we make these improvements, they're part of sort of something bigger. There's been likened to you're going to remodel and you want to look at the whole kitchen, not just selecting the sink kind of thing. So, and furthermore, because we are working through Caltrans to create a vision and sort of get everything kind of worked out with Caltrans, and even though we won't be able to do everything with this initial grant money, to sort of have eliminated that as an obstacle, so as things come up, we can move forward more aggressively. So that's sort of, we are in the phase 1 phase, which is looking at the bigger sort of concept of the downtown that then leads to the phase 2. So next slide. So just sort of schedule. Remember, we're in the green. We're in the phase 1. We're heading towards July, having sort of that downtown vision kind of wrapped up, because the yellow part is Main Street. And right now, they're, they've been working with Caltrans since February, sort of having some initial conversations. As we're starting to look at some preliminary engineering of the Main Street area to make sure it's realistic. So hopefully we will be wrapping up the downtown plan end of July. We get that further. And then the specifics of where we're going to spend the grant money, which is the yellow line, will start happening, with the idea that you'll see construction, that it will get built in the spring of 2021. I'm just sort of sharing that because I want to be really honest with people. It's not like we do the downtown and the next week they start demolishing the sidewalk. And even the spring of 2021, we're working because the merchants have expressed we don't want spring construction, so we're going to have to be finessing that around. This is just to sort of indicate that kind of idea that we work on a downtown vision, then it's like, what happened? And now all the other stuff happens. So that's what this is about. Next slide. For us, in creating a downtown vision, it's really about making the community do all the work. So Not really, but I feel like unless it sort of comes out of what really fits here, it can never be a success. So we've had 2 rounds of outreach that we're in the second round now. The first round we went out and asked people, what do you think? What would make it better? The second round we came back with some options, and people looked at and got their opinions on those options. So in terms of outreach, we sort of have a steering committee that's made up of some key stakeholders in the community that help sort of guide us. And we've been meeting with them regularly. There's the green dots. Then we also hold meetings with what we call Main Street stakeholders, people who are either property owners and merchants along Main Street. We invite everyone to come, but we really target and even have ambassadors on the steering committee going door to door and trying to get those people to come, because obviously when they're building something right in front of your store, you have some different concerns than maybe the community at large. So we wanted to make sure they had a forum to talk to us in. And then we have in the yellow, you're seeing the yellowy green one is when we've actually gone as the community at large and done that. And then the blue are when we come to the Planning Commission, the City Council. So we have multiple places for people to input. If you go to the next slide. And we also have multiple ways. So as I said, we've had these stakeholder meetings. We've even had some key stakeholders that we've conducted interviews because they were people who had special insights. We've done 2 online surveys now. In round 1, we had, see, I had the numbers here. I think I'd remember. We had 215 people respond in round 1, and round 2 just closed on Thursday, and we had 107 people respond. Those are great responses to online survey on this specific topic, which I think actually is an indication of the engagement level of the community. The elementary school went and sort of made a project working with their students, had more than 240 kids participating and sharing with us some of their ideas. So I just think it's been fabulous. We had the Main Street pop-up. Maybe some of you dropped by, on that morning and that was when we were sort of collecting information on people, what they'd want. And we also had a thing at the farmers market, which was a fabulous thing, where people sort of looked at some of the alternatives and gave us input and could ask us questions about. So we've been trying all sorts of different ways to have people know about the project. Plus, people are just stopping us on the street now and telling us their opinions too. So it's just great. I actually love it. Where we're doing a walk the other day and somebody says, "Is that?" It's like, well, we'll meet with you after the walk. Okay, next slide. So in round 1, a couple things we found out is people were, the character people liked was sort of more the historic, with a little bit of contemporary kind of agrarian reference thrown in. The amenities that people wanted to see the most, because we just had pictures, like they wanted to see pots and seasonal lighting and some special focal elements and trash cans and bike racks. But that sort of shows all the things, and those were the things that were at the highest level. Next slide. They also talked to us about the things that we needed to provide. We needed to in the streetscape. We needed to provide seating. They'd like to see the alleyways enhance that connection back to it. They wanted space for outdoor activities, whether it's closing the streets or making little parklets, like some space for things to happen. And I saw you guys talking about that gas station, and like there's a cry for sort of outdoor environments, outdoor experience. Wayfinding, where's the restroom, where's the parking, and historic, like markers that people wanted to see. And there's really like bulb outs and things that expanded this pedestrian experience. We've heard these consistently in multiple ways. Next slide. Oh, by the way, all this information is available online too, if you want to go look at it and study it in more detail, because I realize as you're looking at it, it's really hard, and I'm Cultivate St. Helena. You can go to the Cultivate St. Helena, and you can go to the city's website, and it'll lead you, and you can go to a web page, and it's got the results of everything we're showing you tonight will be there. The survey, the first round of survey, all the things up, and we're trying to get the stuff that closed on Thursday. I'll be previewing with you some of the things we've heard, but we haven't got that officially posted yet. So what we did is we then came up with what we are calling the preferred downtown plan, right? Based on all the stuff that we heard. And the overarching themes are needing to expand the pedestrian areas. People just needed more space for people versus cars or buildings and stuff like that. That the sense of place should be created through art, through celebrating the history, and through agrarian references that we want. That's how people felt St. Helena gets celebrated. And the downtown, Main Street should be a downtown core. It should be more than just the blocks between Adams and Spring Street. It should extend out and to the creek initially. We've now even talked that we're going to extend it even further down as of the council's last direction, and to extends down to the civic block, and eventually to see that it shouldn't be more than just those 2 blocks, that we should really embrace all of the downtown. So those are kind of the overarching things. Next slide. So how do we get more pedestrian space? We looked at everywhere where there is a red curb, that we would look at moving the sidewalk out to basically capture some of the street. You know, you can't park there, you can't drive a car there. It's basically asphalt that's not used for anything but more asphalt. Is moving it out and recapturing that for pedestrian space, where it can be either pavement to set tables and chairs or benches, it can be planting, but whatever, it begins to narrow the perceived width of the street. Now, the street is not being, the travel lanes are not being made any narrower, but the idea is that the ratio of car-dominated space versus people-dominated space begins to shift, and you start creating places for things to happen. So we're doing this through at corners where we have red curbs, you know, bulbing out. You guys see these all the time, and it makes the distance crossing the street shorter, and it really starts creating that kind of more pedestrian space. I've often said to people, I'd love for St. Helena to be a downtown environment that Caltrans happens to drive through, as opposed to a Caltrans road that we built along. You know, I mean, I realize that it's a major corridor, but to begin to sort of recognize that importance. So it'd be corner treatments, curb extensions in some of those areas where we have like an intersection stuff, a lot of red curb, and we get a big chunk that moves out. And there's even a mid-block crossing that we're looking at. So all these areas where we're able to, through no loss of cars, just reclaiming red curb, move the sidewalk out and start to make a bigger pedestrian areas. And those are all the opportunities that we're looking at in there. Next slide. So I'm going to kind of walk down the street a little bit, and I'll go sort of quickly, but then we can come back to things. So right now to the, let's see, the right side of the slide is sort of basically the bridge, okay? And you cross the bridge, and you have a transit bus stop there, but there's red on both sides of it. So we're actually pushing out and really truly more clearly defining the bus stop, which the bus folks like, because often it's very confusing. So a win-win. We're once again, right as you enter into St. Helena, beginning to change the character. Right now, when I am driving up, it's not till I get to Spring Street where I really start slowing down, and we really want that to change. In the area where you have Sunshine Market and there's a landscape planting area right in front of that sort of got mounds in it, and there's all red curb all across that intersection there. You can see that it's adjacent to that red zone. What we want to do is recapture that whole strip. You can kind of see it in the slide in the lower left-hand corner. It's like we've taken and put landscaping out in that whole strip of asphalt. It could become an art walk. We're thinking it could be a place where art could be going on. You could do some kind of portal. So when people arrive, it's a place. If you take that pickup of space, the sidewalk, and then the area where this existing sort of landscape zone in front of, it's the bank. I think it's the Wells Fargo. There's a landscape zone there. So we're not touching any parking. It's about 35, 40 feet across. I mean, suddenly we have a huge place that and in images people liked, you can see areas where you can sort of have seating. It was interesting hearing sort of the discussion with GOTS, like a public space that people could pick up something. They could pick up a sandwich for Sunshine Market. They could hang out. So when people, the first impression when they arrive in St. Helena is, this is a place where you linger. This is a place where you can pause, and you can enjoy the warm summer evenings. There was discussion about making it feel more family friendly, and I have grandchildren, and my daughters are always in the shop shopping, and my grandkids have about 15 minutes patience. I'm always looking for where can I sit down for a few minutes with them while I'm waiting for something, and there aren't any of those kind of spaces. We heard kid-friendly coming up a lot, and so that's sort of the idea there. So the red is showing that you could continue that art walk, is what we're calling. And the other thing that I think is really important is this is not a pedestrian-friendly space. I mean, it really is, and I think that what they're doing with the gas station stuff is trying to get away from, like, feels just comfortable, is to sort of start making the pedestrian-friendly space extend, which then helps the businesses on the other side. It all pulls it down. So there is an opportunity to keep it going, but it would mean losing 5 stalls. And we actually went online and asked this as one of our survey questions, and it was very interesting. Everybody had a very strong opinion about it, and it was pretty evenly divided with a little bit in favor of keeping the parking stalls. And this is something where you can keep the stalls and think about in the future if other options open up for parking. So what I'd like to be able to promise is we can do this without the loss of any parking stalls and get this amazing kind of public space created here. As we continue on down the street, and I know if Joel's here still, the other thing is that corner at that gas station, obviously I want to grab that for a bulb out, but the other thing we're looking at is you've got 2 really huge driveways that exit onto Main Street and one that exits onto Spring. And the one that's closest to the corner that exits onto Main Street is actually problematic. It's like it's exiting from the gas station is too close to where people are crossing and really doesn't kind of even work with the circulation. So what we'd like to do is close that driveway and pick up that space for, once again, extending pedestrian environment out there. Maybe some of the people that would be even using, some of the food at the gas station would then walk over and be out in the street more. I mean, I'd like some of the public outdoor spaces to come more into that public realm. I mean, it would be interesting to see how we could make some synergistic relationship between those outdoor spaces. But that's sort of what's happening in this segment. I'm going to just keep walking down the street. Every time we get to an intersection or crossing, we would be proposing to create bulb outs to shorten the walking distance across, to enhance the paving, once again, to make the idea that this is a pedestrian environment, that you slow down as you move through, and that pedestrian, this is a pedestrian space. That cars are moving through, but it's a pedestrian space. Next slide. So as we move down this a little bit further, and now we're at the intersection of Hunt. And this is another place where you have a lot of red curb as you go through that intersection that allows us to extend out and really pick up a substantial amount of, and create kind of a plaza area there at the end of Telegraph Alley, so that we can add some outdoor seating, we could add some focal elements, art. The things that we add, the vision is about just saying that we want to do something here. We haven't got down to the specifics of it. But the idea that you would do that, you'd create sort of this major kind of intersection crosswalk area. We're keeping the crosswalks in the same location. We're just sort of pulling them up and making them more visible because, in fact, then that pedestrian environment is allowed to dominate. As you move down further, right next to Model Bakery, you may have noticed the red fire hydrant. And that's where we're looking at that mid-block crossing is pushing out where that red fire hydrant is. Across the street, nicely, is a theater. What a great kind of, I mean, I couldn't plan that, that you would get the high fire hydrant and the theater to line up with each other. And by kind of adjusting the striping along there, working with the corners, we can actually shove the cars around and create a mid-block crossing there without losing a car. Which makes, because one of the things is you want to be able to shop both sides of the street. You want to, I was saying we should get T-shirts that I jaywalk in St. Helena, because I do all the time. And but to make that kind of going back and forth feel more comfortable, that you shop both sides of the street. These are things that retailers think about a lot, is when they design malls and downtowns, is the ability to shop back and forth, because you actually often see things when you're across the street that you can't see when you're right adjacent to it and such. So that perspective. Moving down the street. Oh, one thing in this area too, this is good. You go, you keep going. Also another thing came up, people really like the idea of being able to do some temporary street closures in order to hold once a month events, like First Fridays or something like that in the evening. And of course, Hunt Avenue totally lends itself to that. It's a short block. There's a ways, in that map to get around and have that closed. But to set it up with these sort of plug-in, so you could have lighting, or you could set up food trucks and stuff like that. Have some ballers that come up at the end. Have a chalk contest in the road. I don't know, be Italian night and have some. But the idea that this could become a heart of a community and have people meeting together and using that. Maybe you just do it 3 times a year during the summer or whatever. But there was a lot of support for the idea of periodic street closures to really, once again, take back the street. And then, obviously encouraging the merchants on those streets to do treatments on their walls, and people just, because it becomes part of the space. Moving along, thanks. So the alleys, and I'm just going to talk about Telegraph Alley. So the idea of getting people from rear parking areas, so on Oak Avenue, from the public lot here, from Railroad Avenue to Main Street is really important. And this is a great one because you connect all the way through to the school, where I think we're looking at maybe creating some temporary arrangement to use parking at the school on weekends or crowded areas. So, and you already have this pedestrian connection that goes all the way through. It's just sort of overgrown and not really defined. To reclaim it, remove the hedges and open it up, and to put a couple of restrooms in here, because not knowing that we were going to get a couple, it is one of the big issues, is not having restrooms in the downtown area. Even though I realize the Chamber's doing and different kinds of things, it continually came up, not having restrooms in the downtown area. But also beginning to activate and have people. Right now, there's this feeling of lack of parking, and because people, once you leave Main Street and you're like on the side things, it doesn't feel connected. It feels, and there's a lot of private park. I mean, I know you're going to do a parking study and such, but the idea that we begin to open it up so that parking not right on Main Street is still parking associated with Main Street. So doing that, and people love the idea of the number one things in the alleys. They want to see it overhead lights and using, doing art kind of things overhead. And things we're talking about here could be done in all three of the alleys and such, but to make these sort of the connecting experiences. Next. The other big part about it was we sort of, as I said in the beginning, it's like expanding the downtown core. So we have what we call the, entry throat. As people came across the bridge, we had the downtown 2 blocks, and now we have what we call the civic block, and kind of bringing and connecting that civic block, City Hall, Lehman Park, back to the downtown. I mean, I've been coming here for 30 years, and I didn't know there was a park there till about 5 years ago. It's just like, because I didn't experience it in the way it's set up. So, once again, because you have a transit stop here, they've already asked us to red curb some of that area to define them. So we will, every red curb I'm grabbing, pull that out a little bit so that when you look down the street, some of the park has been extended to the street. We have an opportunity for some kind of art or focal element, so you look down and you can kind of see it. This in addition to doing the bulb outs and things that help pull people across the street. Because right now, you stop, the gas station and such, but to continue the streetscape experience, to take the bulb outs to get you across. Because once you cross, I mean, I love that, the hospice, thrift shop. I mean, I'm in there all the time, and that florist or whatever next door. But I keep telling people about it. I never found it, and I'm like, you gotta go past. So I determined to get the street across there. And once again, this is your entry as you come from CIA and that too. So this is your entry to the downtown, and I know that the city's looking at redoing their city hall and that. So this becomes a magnet to draw people down further. The post office, there's things down there. So next slide. So one of the big things too is we have to think about the connections, the side streets, the alleys, improving them, taking some of the treatments that we do on Main Street with street trees and tree grates and lights and things down the side streets so that you continue to feel when you park around the corner on Adams, it doesn't feel like you've parked super far away. It's like somebody would turn the corner and park on Adams and think they're further away from Main Street than if they're like all the way down to Spring Street, but on the street. And it's like, so it's not distance, it's just that you are in or out. And what we want to expand the envelope so you feel you're in. And I think that will start to make it feel more comfortable to move around in the downtown. Next slide. Now, the grant itself will probably, we talked about a lot of things that we want to see in the downtown, and we've looked at it, and we need to be planning for them. But the grant itself, most of the money will probably go for the improvements to address ADA challenges and things on Main Street itself. We want to, work on some of the utilities. We want to get, lighting and power. I mean, you have lighting, but lighting for events like twinkle lights in the trees and things like that on there. So this will be where a lot of the initial work investment is being made. A couple of things that are important to us is you have approximately 11 and a half feet. It varies a little bit from place to place. But typically what you want to think about is a zone right outside the store that is sort of a merchant zone a little bit. It's where model bakery can set up tables and chairs. It's where you might put a pots or something like that. And maybe you even have, you can see it's a little bit different treatment. In the paving, that has maybe a different treatment or different texturing or something that begins to sort of distinguish that. Then you have a zone that we call the circulation zone, and it has to be at least 5 feet wide. You know, and we have eddy space, but that has to be, we have to do that clear, so we have to hold that. And then you have where street amenities can go, like where the street lights are, the historic street lights, where street trees and stuff are on the edge next to the curb. You don't want to have too many obstacles in that area, in areas where you have parking. So when you start clustering seating or trash receptacles or whatever, obviously we'd like to do those in the areas where we're doing the bulb outs, but in the initial phase, if we don't have bulb outs where they're red curbs, that would be those areas that we cluster that. Because what you want to do is keep the merchants having people freely moving around, purchasing and doing that. So you're enhancing it. We're going to retain the historic light character. There's some discussion about, you know, we may have to replace some, but that's a given. We want to keep that. You know, the historic lights that are on Main Street. The street lights.
Luminaires.
See them there? There's a picture of it right there. With the globes on them.
I just didn't understand the word.
The ones
Okay.
The ones from the exhibition.
Thank you.
Those are from the World's Fair.
Right, and I think some
from Panama Pacific.
Okay, we're going to keep those lights, okay? Now, some of them may need repairs, and I understand over time even some have replicas, so I'm not guaranteeing they're all exactly going to be the same light, but that light will remain, that character. We're going to be putting in street trees in grates, because to get a healthy street tree, you have to have a large enough planting area, and in order to have that soil root area, I don't want to impinge on the 5 feet, so people need to be able to walk across part of the tree grate. I want to keep as much circulation, pedestrian circulation as I can.
Box the trees?
No, the trees will be in the ground.
No, but I mean box the trees.
Well, actually, we haven't sort of worked out the detail yet. Where there's like some special treatments they're doing, like Silvacell and other kinds of things. But we are okay because they
have utility problems because of the street trees.
Oh, yeah. This whole thing, and so I will be honest that in the areas we're working, we will more than likely be removing the existing tree and starting all over with what we know are the best practices about, you know, creating root barriers, creating, you know, different structural soils, planting trees that are more columnar, doing irrigation systems that deep dive them down. We've learned a lot over the years about this. And so that's why some of the decisions about how we're going to be doing the trees and the fact that the trees will probably, in all likelihood, be replaced. You know, there may be ones that we look at, I'll look at it, but because we have to do it right. I mean, this is our opportunity to do it. We'll be doing a lot of work with the utilities to repair things that have historically been problems. We're creating like a foundation. We want to make sure that it's the right one. Fiber optic cables getting added. As I said, lighting at each, you know, near the trees so we have power, so we can do event power, lights in the trees, just all the things that people are able to do now in downtown environments. One of the things we've heard over and over again, though, but making it special, so we talked to staff about the material, and the pavers have been problematic from the beginning because even the roots have allowed them, is to go back to concrete. But concrete, and frankly, in a lot of historic downtowns, it was concrete, you know, I mean, in this California, to a smaller scoring pattern, because that's what, you know, they weren't the big 5x5 blocks, they were smaller scoring patterns. They had a different kind of texture treatment. It sort of feels softer, the look of them. And to look at doing things like there's a plaque either embedded in, it's like actually a concrete square that went in, it tells the story in numerous towns, or there's things where you see impressions of leaf prints or different kinds of things. So there's sort of a very subtle story in some of the areas of the paving, but it's all that rich layering that we'll just keep layering up through the design that we want to do. And I think that introduction of the wayfinding system, we're going to really start to work on having that come in the first phase, because I think people understanding where the restroom is, where the parking is such, begins to address some of the problems that we're having. But I just wanted to share, because where I think there's a lot of great things that'll make improvements, unless there's additional funding made available for this project, we're not going to get every bulb out in this project. It'll just be part of, we're set up to do it, is what I'm sort of saying. So what we're schedule-wise, so what we're doing here is we're basically updating you on what we've heard from the community and what we've come up with based on their input. And the community's seen this and commented on things and given us their opinions. So talk to you. We're going to have a similar presentation to the council next Tuesday. Take your input and the council input, update and tweak this, sort of come back with some of the things like a little bit more detail, like where we're thinking we want to invest the grant money, big bang for the buck in that first phase, honoring the terms of the grant. Come back to you in a month. So it's like basically collect all your input and come back to you in a month with any questions you had and kind of show how we were able to accommodate that. And then we'll go into round 2, which is getting down to, getting the construction drawings done for putting the improvements in place. That's all I got to say. So you have 7 minutes to respond. Sorry, I didn't mean for it to take so long. I get going.
No, we saved lots of time for you tonight.
I appreciate it.
So, are there any comments on this wonderful presentation? Thoughts you want to add? Anyone?
You mean sharing our own thoughts about it, as if we're...
Well, I think your
like
input is
yeah.
being solicited.
Yeah, I'm not seeking any approvals. I'm seeking criticisms, whatever, because I want to make it work for you guys.
Well, I have a few. I don't know who wants to go first.
Go for it, Bobby.
Go for it.
Good.
Okay, well, a couple of... First of all, I'd like to know how to get in touch with you so I can talk more, if that's possible. I don't know if you can make an appointment. You had up on one of the slides that you had made appointments with people.
You can. I'll give you my email after this. Okay. Eric can give that to you. And yeah,
okay. I can get them.
We keep scheduling time, so that's fine.
So I had a couple of things. It's amazing, and really mind-stretching. Well, first of all, I'm sure, too bad, is your grant large enough to just simply put Highway 29 underground between...
Well, I thought about rerouting it to over on the Silverado Trail, but I got shot down on that in the first 5 minutes. But
I mean, Berkeley put BART underground. Well, all right. Well, that's the main... That would be the best move forward. But what I'm thinking is I really like the idea of expanding off of Main Street, the sense of the city. But if you're going to do Oak Street, my warning would be keep the tourists away from the elementary school.
Okay.
And if you're going to do stuff, do it from Tainter back to Mitchell, because I mean there are some housing there, but a lot of it is churches, and I don't know what they would think. But anyway, it seems to me that would be a good place to have some activities to draw people into more of a pedestrian thing. I love the idea.
I think there's a plaza back by the church that somebody on the steering committee was talking about. Some art has been put in and such. So
okay. So I didn't know about that. But and the who knows, the schoolyard, the Catholic school, that might be able to be incorporated into something too. But
I think that's a good point, because the residential.
Yeah, and let's see, and I think I heard you say no Main Street entrance to the gas station.
No.
You're going to take the other one out.
There are 2 entries on Main Street currently to the gas station.
You. Okay.
And the one that's really near the corner
that makes sense. Yeah,
it's doesn't feel like it's that safe a situation.
Okay. And then what did I say? Oh yeah, I was thinking. I know the mayor mentioned this at the last city council meeting. If you're going to have those historical plaques in the sidewalk, I think it would be a really great idea to include the idea of the Native American history, and even not reparation talk, but you know what I'm saying. Honoring that they were here and that they were driven out and not always under the nicest circumstances. I think the mayor had mentioned something about that, and I know they've done that in Germany, and they do that in a lot of places, and I think it's a really cool idea. So
I like that, because I like it to be not just one 50-year period that we're recognizing, but
right, or all white people, because or all Italians, or all because
well, sure, there may have been other cultures
history,
that were important here, whether it was the Chinese or Italians or something.
True, right. So that I just think that's a great idea, and would be cool to have all that. And I might have some more, but that's all I have right now, and I'll get your emails.
Great, I love it. Thank you. Erica.
Is the online survey still active?
No, it's shut down.
Okay, that's good.
What did you ask? She wanted to know if the online survey was still active. We did 2, and this last one went down on Thursday, and we had 107 on that one.
Commissioner Anderson?
You said that it could be done without removing any parking spaces. The mid-block crosswalk in front of the theater would remove parking and a bench.
So in order to avoid removing parking, we have looked at, we can shift a little bit towards the corners and stuff like that, a little bit here and there, to create a gap in between, to do a mid-block crossing there. So we'd restripe all the parking, like if you get down closer to the corners, and there we can create it. And in the block, it doesn't even have to be, the 22 feet of a parking stall. We can create a 12-foot wide spot. There is enough extra to not accommodate a car along that area, but to accommodate a crossing.
I don't know, I've seen people try to park in the generous sizes that are there, and that's...
Right, no, we're not proposing they would be any more. It's just that you have some, not enough for a car, but enough to separate the cars, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Commissioner Hale?
There's a lot of imagery here that I find terrific. I mean, the alleys, the sort of feeder, the directional, the hanging lights, closing hunt, I think is awesome. I'm a little queasy, I guess, about some of the. I'd almost like to challenge or just put out there, if we're letting our streetscape shine as well as we can. We've got this terrific, not always terrific, but mostly terrific kind of buildingscape.
Absolutely.
Out there, and I'm a little worried about kind of kind of too many bells and whistles kind of along the way.
That's a good point.
And the art, I'm an artist. I
can give you a canvas.
but I'm cautious about that too. I don't want it to be kitschy. I think we want to just make sure, I would just want to make sure that we remain authentic and not suburban, if that makes any sense.
It makes 100% sense, and I think that will be our always that fine line.
Yeah, because I just think it's critically important that we understand that part of what we have people coming here for is to be not suburban, to be small town, to be authentic. And sometimes authentic can be grungy and can be quirky, and I don't take this the wrong way. I don't think our problem right now is that we have a sidewalk. I mean, I understand that we have trips in our sidewalks, but we have some terrific things too, where we have brass remnants of things in there that are history, that are true history, that are authentic. That I just don't want to see this homogenized, and I think there's aspects of this that I think are fantastic. I'm just.
I absolutely am very empathetic to that kind of. You don't want to get too slick. You want the authenticity. You don't want to go all the way to Disneyland, and you don't want to be blah. And it's like when you do your living room and you select carpeting and stuff, because then you'll put a rug on it or you'll put a pillow on it. And that's what I'm saying, like the paving will probably be a concrete that's scored with, sandblasting. We have talked about maybe highlighting, like sometimes we're putting glass into it and maybe some wine bottle glass in certain kind of areas. But it's subtle. Yeah, it looks very cool.
Edges up. No.
It looks very cool. No, it's not jagged. But also just still being like the stage on which the merchants' windows displays show off.
Right.
And the beautiful
I think that's my. I just want to make sure that should be the center stage.
I think it would be hard.
And we have a tremendous resource down there that we.
So you wanted
we need to sort of bring a good plinth to that sort of puts that up on a pedestal. Then then, and I think,
Agree.
I think
totally
directional
agree.
signs, and we've had resisted that historically in this town for a long time, which I thought was a huge mistake. I think Healdsburg has done it terrifically, with signposts, and they've managed to sort of expand their vitality, kind of zone of their downtown in a terrific, pleasant way. And I think, those kind of aspects I think are great. I love the alleys. I love the, I even the other day thinking that the chamber bathrooms, why aren't we using that little alley and directing people? Why isn't there a sign at the chamber bathrooms yet?
Yes.
But I think those things can happen, and I think we should. I'm encouraging. I think there's aspects I think are terrific. I love closing Hunt for a little something and food truck thing down there. I think that's great. I think there's opportunities for vitality that I think we need to facilitate. That I want to see more. I want to see more activity downtown. I want to see action. I want to see some, and I don't think I'm the only one out there that wants that's craving vitality, and that's part of what I'm seeing here, which I think is awesome.
Well, retail sort of is